What is up, Pitt fans? Welcome to a special Halloween edition of the PG Pitt Show brought to you by FanDuel. I'm Stephen Thompson. That's Abby Schnable. We cover Pitt athletics for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Neither of us are in costume, but today I will cosplay as a California native. Yes, because I am out here on the West Coast. Got in last night, but I will be here to cover Pitt-Stanford. But before we get into that, Abby and I we'll get you guys set for kickoff tomorrow afternoon on the farm, as they call it. Abby, how you feeling about this game this week?
It's hard not to think that Pitt should have no issues with this one, but then you consider all the trap scenarios and that, they're beat up, it's the away game, looking forward, and all of that just like makes me like there's always a chance that someone could do something. I don't necessarily think that team is Stanford, but it's just circumstantial. It's a game that they should win, but with all the circumstances against them, I'm interested to see how they show up.
At the very least, they didn't get that 7:30 that night game on the
Yeah.
West Coast. Having to play the 10:30 body clock game. So Pitt, got a little bit of a solid from the ACC in that sense. But there's actually some good news coming out of those injury reports talking about how they were beat up a little bit. There was a really positive development for Pitt on the Thursday night injury report, and that is that Jaeden Moore, defensive end, off the injury report, meaning he is healthy and set to make his Pitt debut. Got hurt in the preseason, and we believe it was a lower body injury of some kind. His foot was in a cast. He was on a scooter for those first few weeks, but back now, healthy. Abby, what do you kind of expect out of Jaeden Moore in this game?
I mean, I can't imagine he's going to play a ton, just because not only is it Stanford and they don't have a great offense, but it's also his first game back. It's his first game at Pitt, too. I mean, this is a guy that they highly touted as like being a clear kind of number one defensive end. And him and Blaine Spires were battling back and forth, it felt like, for all of training camp until Jaeden Moore seemingly got injured. And so to have him back in the mix on a very, limited defensive line, specifically at the defensive end, it's great. I mean, with how hyped he was, hopefully he's able to bring something even in that limited opportunity. But I love that they're going to get him game reps, because I think that sets him up nicely for, really solidifying himself in practice during the bye week. And then hopefully more snaps come Notre Dame, Georgia Tech, Miami.
Exactly. This is going to be kind of his preseason, right? So, this is going to be him kind of getting reintegrated and getting back up to game speed. They were really, really excited about him in the preseason. Even going back to spring ball, like the Pitt staff raved about this guy. So, in specific to this game, I think he will help because Stanford likes to run the ball.
Mhm.
They've got some big tailbacks. I don't think anyone on they're too deep. I mean, they have 4 running backs listed on their depth chart, and all of them are at least 200 pounds. So there's going to be a body blow factor there, and just having more bodies, even if Moore only plays 15 or 20 snaps, which I think is about that range for him on Saturday, it won't those snaps are going to be really valuable. And giving Jimmy Scott a break, giving
Mhm.
Joey Zelensky a break, giving Isaiah Neal a break, just any extra bodies that you can add in there are going to be really valuable for Pitt in this game. So um, I think you're exactly right, though. This is all kind of building to after the bye, and I think that might be the case for a lot of the guys on Pitt's injury report. To be quite frank with you, Abby, you know, in that injury report last night, lot of big names in that questionable spot. Desmond Reed, Cruz Brookins, Kenny Johnson, um, and I am forgetting some of the other ones that I think
Kyle
you
Lewis, Rasheem
Kyle Lewis.
Biles.
Yes, those are important players too. Um, so yeah, I mean, like that's 5 of your better players, right? That are in kind of injury recovery, that are doubtful, or questionable, I should say. So I guess this is kind of a tough situation, right? Like we talked about at the top. Stanford not a world beater at all. Is this a spot where you think Pitt could kind of be looking ahead, maybe a little bit too much? Thinking about okay, we've got a bye, and then we've got, really kind of a gauntlet at the end of the year with starting with Notre Dame at home. Do you think Pitt's going to kind of hold out any of these guys as kind of a precautionary reason?
I wouldn't be surprised because, I mean, going to your point of, there's a lot of guys in this position. You even got to look at the ones that are out this week. I mean, Blaine Spires is a guy who's been in and out, Jeff Percy in and out, and then Nick Lappy also has been a huge help on the linebacker spot with Rasheem and Kyle out. I feel like this is a situation in that they're going to want to rest people, but they might not totally have the flexibility just because, like, you don't want to get into a situation in which you're all of a sudden down a touchdown against Stanford, which I don't necessarily think is going to happen, even if some of these guys don't play. But when you don't have, I mean, 5 of your best players on the field, that's inherently going to change how your team functions, because Desmond Reed, Kenny Johnson, Kyle Lewis, Rasheem Biles, and Cruz Brookins are all leaders on this team, and they all hold down their position group really, really well. I mean, I feel like the one group that probably doesn't need this player to come back is the wide receiver room. I love Kenny Johnson. I think he has a great connection with Mason Heinschel, but I think that position group is pretty stacked right now. And so, like, if Kenny weren't to play, I don't think it'd be the end of the world. And same with Desmond Reed, just because, honestly, rest him up. Like, he played way too long against NC State. Rest him up. Give Jakirian Turner and Joel Goff the reps, because Jakirian Turner is on an uphill, or well, he looks really good, is what I'm trying to say. And then, like, ideally, I think you want Kyle or Rasheem back. Ideally, and I think Kyle Lewis was pretty close last week, but it just didn't end up. He was a game time decision, and so I wouldn't be surprised if you have him back, but maybe not Rasheem. And then I just hope Cruz Brookins is back, because he has been holding down that secondary pretty much all season. So it's one of those situations where I feel like they're going to want to rest, but at what cost, especially at the linebacker spot, because they're super thin there, and I don't necessarily know if you want to throw Kavir Marquez Baines down there again.
That's interesting, because the defensive side of the ball is where I am not worried at all for Pitt, in this game. Like, I think there's a possibility Stanford could be kind of frisky on defense and keep this game maybe a little low scoring if Pitt isn't on their P's and Q's. Kenny is the guy that I'm like a little, that's the guy I would want in the lineup, most out of these 5. Like, I think, like you said, Pitt can survive with Boosie Turner at running back if Dez isn't able to go. And I think they've proven at linebacker that they can kind of figure it out and figure it out with some creative packages on defense. And Cruz Brookins, I mean, they survived last week, even with, without him and Kavir Baines playing basically star linebacker for the entire game. So I'm not as worried on defense. I don't think Stanford is very good in that sense. I don't think they're going to challenge Pitt a ton on the defensive side of the ball, but it would really it would be tough if Kenny Johnson is not in there. I think he's really heating up at the right time, and like you said, has a great relationship with Mason Heinschel. So of those 5, I think Kenny Johnson's the one that I'm really keeping an eye on. That's the one that I really want to make sure he's available if possible. That's the one I wouldn't want to hold out. Abby, let's flip to the other sideline. Let's talk a little bit about Stanford, a team that has struggled this year, but they are particularly good at home. They have been for the past couple of years. That West Coast travel does tend to affect teams. They've won 4 ACC games since joining the league. 3 of them have come this year. No, 2 of them have come this year. I think they've won 2 in either of their years in the ACC. But 3 of them have come against teams that are traveling from the Eastern time zone to the Pacific time zone to play at Stanford. So this is, that 14 and a half point spread, according to our friends at FanDuel, looks big, but this certainly is a spot where other teams have fallen into a trap. Like Louisville last year, coming into Stanford, they were a highly ranked team, had a ton of momentum, but they lose on a last second field goal. And it's partially because, they commit a dumb penalty late in the game, right? Like, clearly there is something in the air at Stanford that makes it tough to play there.
Yeah, I think Pitt needs to take advantage of the holes that Stanford gives them. I mean, I think one of the big ones is a quarterback. I'm going to say his name wrong, Goldbranson. He gets sacked a lot. And so if Pitt can take advantage of that and really just, get pressure early, make him comfortable in the pocket. Stanford doesn't necessarily have the firepower to recover. I mean, they have Micah Ford and CJ Williams who are pretty decent, but this is a team that inherently struggles, and they rely, like you said earlier, they rely on the run, and they're not particularly phenomenal at that either. And when you're coming against one of the best run defenses in the nation in Pitt, that just makes it hard for me to think that like Pitt is really going to struggle just because of how strong their defense has been, even shorthanded, like you mentioned. And I'm not super worried about the on the other side is either. They're allowing almost 300 passing yards per game, which is ranks near the bottom of the FBS. The corners struggle with speed, and their safeties often get caught out of position. That's a big opportunity for Mason Heinschel to get that passing game going, especially if you have Kenny Johnson in, because to your point, that is a player who has such a great connection. I was less worried about him just because I feel like Blue Hicks and Poppy Williams and go down the line have been really solid. But yeah, ideally, if you have Kenny Johnson, you can really take advantage of their defensive flaws. And so this is also a Stanford team that doesn't force a lot of takeaways. They've only had 5 all season. And so that's an area that like Pitt can continue to improve on, because they haven't had that many issues with that since Eli Holstein was taken out of the lineup. So it's just a matter of if they show up, if they're focused, if they're locked in, if they're not looking too far ahead, and if Pitt can handle all of that. Like and I wrote this in my column, I genuinely think Pitt's biggest opponent this week is themselves because of the circumstances. But when you go down the line, I mean, compare stat to stat, I mean, Pitt is just the better team. And so they, in theory, shouldn't have issues. But when you think about everything around that game, the fact that they're undefeated at home, it's just, it makes you question. There's just a little question mark hanging right there.
I think if Pitt's able to get off the field on third down, I think that's really the key here. I think Stanford's best bet is to kind of control time of possession, keep this game on the ground, inflict some body blows, like I said, against a Pitt defense that's going to be undermanned. That's going to be their ticket here. That's going to be how they keep this game competitive. But if Pitt comes out, first possession, if they take the ball and they score a touchdown on that opening possession, like they've done for most of the past few weeks, most of the past month, then it could end up being a long day for Stanford, especially if they've got to put the ball in the air and try to move the ball that way. If Pitt can come out firing like they have, then I don't think this game ends up being close, and I think Pitt gets out of here with a comfortable win and maybe even covers that spread. And speaking of spreads, Abby, our friends at FanDuel, like I said, they have Pitt as a 14-point favorite in this game. I think we're both expecting Pitt to win, but do you think that Pitt covers that?
I'm going to say yes, especially after watching them against NC State. That team has a better defense than Stanford. Still not one of the best, but Pitt really took advantage of that and beat them by more than 14 points. And so if Pitt jumps out early, which they have in these past couple of games, Stanford really doesn't have the firepower to keep it close. And if Pitt can just, run away with it early and kind of just keep that lead, it allows a little bit more breathing room in the second half. And I don't see sure, it could get close, but Pitt should comfortably be up by 14 and a half points by the end of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Pitt play, arguably one of their worst games of the year, at least their worst since Mason Heinschel was inserted into the starting lineup, and that was at Syracuse in a game they won by 17 points.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine a way this game goes where Stanford is able to keep it much closer than 14 and a half points. So I'm picking Pitt to cover as well. Abby, how about that 51 and a half point total? You going over or under?
I'm going to take the over, mostly because I've been wrong the past 2 times and I want to get back on my right win streak. But also, I mean, look, this Pitt team knows how to, take advantage of the pass, knows how to get the run going, and they've been high scoring. And then when you factor in likely garbage time drives from Stanford to just add a little bit of points if we're not to that point by the end of the game anyway, I trust Pitt's offense way more than I trust Stanford's defense. And so Pitt alone could be fairly high scoring. And then when you add in the inevitable Cardinal touchdown or field goal or whatever it ends up being, I think they get there.
You think they only score once? Interesting.
Well, no.
I'm going to go under, I think, in this game. I think Pitt is going to jump out to a big lead early. They're going to take their foot off the gas a little bit, and Stanford is just not going to be able to do much. So I'm going under. we'll see how it all plays out on Saturday afternoon. We'll have tons of coverage from California. Abby will be helping me out from home with her own thoughts while she watches the game. But make sure you're staying tuned to @PGPit on YouTube, like this video, and subscribe so you don't miss anything. And then follow all of our written work at Post-Gazette.com. Tons more stuff about the basketball season coming up as well. We are kind of rolling out our basketball preview materials this week, so tons of good stuff on Post-Gazette.com today and throughout the rest of the weekend as we get you ready for season opener on Monday night against Youngstown State. So thank you all for joining us for this one, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.